I'm delighted to welcome to the studio now writer and researcher on prisons and justice issues, also former prisoner himself, gives him insight on all sides of debate, David Shipley. A very good morning to you.
Hi.
Great to get you in the studio at long last. Lots of stories regarding prisoners in the news today. First of all, Labour freeing 26,000 prisoners early in just 7 months of being in office. Hundreds were jailed who, for more than 10 years, were released early. Now, you're going to prison for 10 years. You've committed a very serious crime indeed. Is this significant? Because we know no one serves their full sentence pretty much anymore, and you get let out earlier and earlier and earlier. Are we, and is the media, are we in danger just making a big sort of, big circus out of people coming out of prison a couple of months early when they're going to be out anyway?
I think it is important because, we had this early release scheme announced, which we did need to have because there was no room in the prisons. And I think people maybe didn't realise how many prisoners were going to be released how early. And
how serious a lot of their crimes were.
Sure, and for these sorts of sentences, you might have people who have committed very large-scale drug importation, for example. This could be people bringing in kilos or tons of Class A drugs into the country. And I do think the problem we have is that the system itself is full and broken. We have to do something, but this has just moved a lot of the problem. Yeah. We know probation are really struggling. The probation service are currently balloting for strike action, and this isn't
That'll help.
Well, it's not really getting attention, but they're rightly saying we haven't had a pay rise in 10 years, and now you're about to give us loads more work because you're using prison less.
Yeah.
We're going to use probation
and we're supposed to be monitoring these people. And of course, the public are told, but these people are closely monitored. They're not.
They're not. And I and other journalists have been looking at this over the last year. The tagging system has been in disarray. People not getting tagged, which is supposed to be its main mechanism of supervising them.
So we know where you are. Yeah,
well, exactly. We know what you're doing, and that just hasn't been happening consistently.
But that's really basic. I mean, if you're out of prison on early release, you should be tagged. That's seems to me to be pretty...
Yes, it should be.
How does it not happen? Don't you put the tag on as they leave prison?
You would think that, but no, instead, because we've outsourced...
This is so terrifying.
Yeah, well, we outsourced the tagging systems. It's run by an outsourced company at the moment.
Who are paid billions of pounds.
Who are paid billions of pounds, of course. Yep. And what happens is you're released from prison, you have to then make your way to your probation office. Now, you might think at the probation office you could be tagged, but that would be far too simple. So instead, you then go home and the tagging company is supposed to come round and put a tag on you. And that's supposed to happen the day you're released from prison.
But a lot of people don't have a home when they're released.
Indeed, and even then, often it hasn't been happening. So you have this really chaotic system where it's just not in control.
And these people, again, these people are out on the streets. What do you make of the idea that they're saying that foreign criminals could be deported, unless you're a murderer or a terrorist, but you could commit GBH, you could leave someone paralysed, you could rape somebody, but you're a foreign criminal, you could be deported as soon as you are convicted and sentenced. And if it's a prison sentence, you can be deported straight away. You won't be able to appeal until you're aboard. Now, this is only for 23 countries. There's already a few countries this is already allowed in. But they include Finland, Australia and Canada. And I know we've got a huge crime wave from Finns and Canadians and
so many
Australians.
Finns. And no Afghanistan or Eritrea on there.
Yeah, and again, if you look at, for instance, like the boat people, Afghanistan, Iran, Eritrea, Syria and Sudan, none of those countries are on the list. So you look at, there are a few others that are on the list, like Albania, which do have a high prison population from. But there's no guarantee these people actually will serve a single day behind bars in their home country.
Yeah, and I think that's quite dangerous. So I do think we shouldn't have so many foreign nationals in our prisons, right? And we should try to deport them quickly. But if we create a system where you commit a crime here and you immediately get sent home, what we've actually created is a come and do crime for free setup. And if we should assume then organised crime will use that to get people to come and do crime here.
And then you get dispatched home and then they just ship you back in.
Well, we've got no border control, right? So of course they can do. So I think it's...
I think we might have spotted the flaw in this system.
A little bit,
and there's no incentive for some of these countries, say Albania. Oh, great, we're going to spend a fortune putting one of our nationals behind bars for a crime he committed somewhere else.
And I know of foreign national prisoners at Wandsworth who actually would try to advocate with governors that they be deported quickly, knowing that they would get released far quicker at home, they would be treated differently. So, yeah, it's very tempting to say, let's just send them all home the moment.
Because the argument given by the minister today, who's doing the rounds, was very much like, well, what about rapists? What about someone who's raped and then their rapist gets convicted of, say, in 4 years prison sentence? I mean, rape is convicted. I know, I'm stretching reality, folks, for effect. And then they basically get deported, and then they don't serve a single day behind bars. I mean, I'm more than happy for my taxes to go to the 54 grand to pay for them to be behind bars for a few years. That's money well spent in my view. But But the reality is, I mean, these people are not, most people aren't being arrested for crimes anyway. So does it make, I mean, to a certain extent, does any of it make any difference when barely anyone ever gets arrested or charged or convicted?
Well, I think the one bit which does sound interesting is the idea we'll deport them and let them appeal after they've been deported, because the big problem we have is, of course, everyone uses human rights law, often the right to a family life, to resist being deported.
But it's only 23 countries.
It is. So if this was expanded to all countries, and it could be countries like Afghanistan, you know, Germany are managing to deport Afghans at the moment, so I'm not sure why we can't.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, what will this make much of a difference? I think it will free up a bit of space. I think it obviously gives some good headlines, and I think the intent is solid, but it needs to be much more widespread, and we need to be looking at deporting to the countries where we get far more criminal people coming from, like the Afghanistans and Eritreas.
Yeah, but we're simply not going to get those deals, though, are we?
Probably not, no.
No, I mean, I got the realistically. Still with us is Sam Armstrong. What do you make of this? Well, I mean, no, that's it. That's all we need. That sound sums it up.
Well, I really worry about that. This is tantamount to a charter, a licensing for the grooming gangs, because, you know, you can now come into this country, participate in the organised sexual exploitation of young working class white girls. You can, if you are ever caught, which we know the vast majority are not, you will simply just go back home to where you came from.
Where you're probably already building a house, as we saw with one convicted grooming ganger who said, I can't be deported, it's not safe. But he's actually building a house at home that he goes on holiday to.
Are we really now saying that foreigners, when they commit crimes, that they ought not to spend a single day in prison? Because that's the
But the argument from the minister, I said again, she was asked this 2 or 3 times on media this morning, and she kept saying, but you're not going to have to pay the cost. But again, I think...
Why don't we let all prisoners out?
On that basis.
Why don't we let them all out? It'll be much cheaper.
I think we virtually are, as far as I can gather. But David Shipley, I mean, there is a huge cost of keeping people behind bars, but we're not doing a lot of the things we're supposed to do with prisoners behind bars. We're not rehabilitating anybody, we're not educating anyone, we're not getting anyone off drugs. We're doing the exact opposite.
I think this is it, and I'm often more concerned about what happens in prison versus how long we put people there. Yeah, and I think £54,000 a year to pay for people to sit in their cells for 22 hours a day, staring at daytime TV, often getting addicted to drugs, often drinking moonshine, whatever it might be, is just destructive.
It's not good value for money, is it?
It's a waste of our money and of our time, but also of their time. It's not actually making them less likely to commit crime.
No, in fact, they're far more likely to commit crimes after. Once you're a drug addict and you have to pay for those drugs. Absolutely fascinating. Great to have you on. I hope you'll come back into the studio again very soon.